Viewer discretion is advised, as this video handles the subject matter of war, torture, violence, and death. If we could put ourselves back into the shoes of the German people during the Third Reich, statistically speaking, most of us would have been Nazi collaborators or participants in the horror. Most of us would have gone on with their lives without resisting the racially motivated authoritarian dictatorship that was Nazi Germany. Maybe in fear of repercussions, seeing neighbors, friends, and family being prosecuted for their supposed transgressions against the powers that be. Maybe because we would have benefited from the status quo, as the Jewish competing shop across the street got taken out. Or we moved up in the hierarchy as the political enemy that was once holding this position was transferred to a death camp. Most of us would just have been complacent, apathetic, disillusioned. But there were people that resisted the anti-humanist equation that the Nazis propagated. One of these people was George Blind, member of the French Resistance. This photo of his execution was not his last moment in life, as he unabashedly smiled into at least 16 members of a Nazi firing squad, trying to intimidate him and his comrades with a mock execution, to pressure any information out of them that could jeopardize the resistance movement. You would think that 1 or 2 shooters should be enough to execute someone, besides the intimidation factor. But the reason behind having so many shooters was to diffuse the blame of killing the victim, as it turned out that these firing squads hurt the soldiers' morale that participated in them. Even so, this technique of psychological torture and execution was commonly used by the Nazis during the Second World War. During their Eastern Campaign, their stratagem was to eliminate every man in a town if they were suspected to host partisan fighters. The SS had specialized hit squads for these operations, whilst coercing local police into these activities. These tactics mirrored Napoleon's strategy during the invasion of Spain, where the French army executed civilians for every French soldier that was killed by a partisan. This photo was taken in 1944. Before the war, George Charles Louis Blind, born in November 1904, was a fireman from Belfort, France. He became a member of the resistance in 1941. As a fireman, he transported resistance officials, wanted people, weapons, intelligence, and underground newspapers in the safety of the night. During the occupation of France, only personnel carrying a Nachtausweis, a night pass, were allowed working in the night. He was arrested on October 14, 1944 by the German military police. He and his comrades never gave up any information to the Nazis and were swiftly taken away into a concentration camp in Blechhammer in Poland. After the medical examination by an SS doctor, George and 10 other prisoners were considered contagious to be placed in the infirmary where he supposedly died. A German soldier deposited the film containing the photo of the mock execution in a shop in Belfort, where photographer Alois Ball produced a copy. The photo was published shortly after the war ended on May 25th in 1945, later even distributed as a postcard. George was posthumously awarded the Cross of War, the Medal of the Resistance, and the Silver Medal with Rosette of the Firemen. We will never know what George might have thought as he smiled towards his executioners. Maybe he knew what was happening, as during this time it already became clear that the Nazis weren't going to win the war anymore. Knowing that he and his comrades would not die in vain, and that their convictions would triumph in the long run. As it stands, this photo survives as a reminder that conviction and courage defeat despotism and tyranny. democracy, and freedom are not gifted to us. They need to be protected and fought for as long as there's something to gain out of undermining these ideals. Thank you for watching. I wish you the best.